Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Lead the Way Wednesday. I am your leadership enthusiast, Kristen Webb, and so excited that you joined us again today as we share all things leadership and hopefully get you through your hump day so you can make it to the rest of your week successfully, effectively, and just motivated to continue on your leadership journey because we know it can be challenging. We know that we are constantly seeking those moments of push, and so hopefully this episode will do that for you. And I shouldn't say hopefully, it's going to do that for you. I have an amazing guest on with me. Her name is Miss Veronica Michelle Clark. And we met, I guess, maybe a couple years ago now, just working in the procurement space. And I talk about leadership on the podcast all the time, but I don't really talk about my procurement space. So I'm really excited to have somebody in a very in the same industry as myself. And so Veronica Clark, she is with PTAC counselor. She's a PTAC counselor with the University of Tennessee Center for Industrial Services. And in short, this phenomenal lady basically helps small businesses all the time learn how to scale, learn how to be better, do better, and just be successful in what they do. And so that's the bit that I'm going to share, and then I'm going to shut up and let Veronica introduce herself. So Veronica, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, just kind of jump in and just tell us a little bit about yourself before I really start grilling you with questions.
So if I had to tell you who I am, I'm a Kentucky girl. I'm from Paducah, Kentucky. I came to Nashville about 14 years ago. Actually, it's going to be 15 years this year. And I haven't left. I haven't left because it's somewhere that's close to home, super family oriented. I'm the youngest of four. Even though I'm the youngest of four, sometimes I lead the family. We're a blended family, so I'm the glue that keeps us together. I love being involved in our community. If you are follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see I'm a community advocate, connector, and procurement consultant. Those are the three things that drive me, and those are my why. Really big on breaking those generational curses that have plagued our community for so long. And everything I do, that's my why. And everything I do wraps up around that.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, once you cross over into Tennessee, you know we got you. We're not going to let you go. You got to stay here. We have that effect. I'm down here in Memphis, but Nashville is close and dear as well. So I know they have held you tight, especially if you're good people. We want you to stay close and help us, continue to be successful. So first question is, you got 3 seconds. I need you to give me in one word, what is leadership to you?
Leadership to me is influence, either for good or bad.
I love it. I love it. That was quick too. I love it. And you're right. I always like to use the definition of influence, starting there. And, of course, there are all these different characteristics that we can put with leadership, but absolutely being able to influence and the direction that you go. I like that you said that you can either do a good job at it because you're influencing in a good way, or not so good going in the other direction. So I love that. So why don't you start out, maybe tell us a little bit about your leadership story. What does it look like if we had to say, this is Veronica, the leader? How did it start? How did you end up where you are now? What did your journey look like?
My journey was rough. I got a rough start. I did not like to speak. I typically don't like speaking. If you hear me speak, I always tell people this is not my wheelhouse. It's something that I ran from. Like I don't like to speak in front of people, but I have to do it every day. So I had to, for my leadership style, I couldn't have my team or the people that I have been over from like a committee chair's perspective or even just leading. I can't have you up there doing a speech and I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. So I'm having to learn how to lead by example. And also from a standpoint that I run from leadership. I don't see myself in the role, but other people see me in that role. I can think of it from this standpoint. Last March, I was quietly behind the scenes helping to lead. And then I got voted in as chair of a board that I'm on. And I was like, well, how did this happen? And then the lady that kind of helps to mentor me, she's like, you've been in the role this whole entire time. She's like, you started this in March. I was like, well, I'm just doing what I know how to do. And I can be a leader, I can be a follower. I'm just going to do the work that needs to be done. I'm so focused on the mission. That's truly who I am as a leader, helping you focus on the mission. And if you can't fulfill your duties, just let us know. Like I care about the person more than I care about the task. Yeah, we're going to get the mission. We're mission driven. But if you're not okay, the rest of the team is not okay. I always refer to leadership as that you've got to make sure that all the links in the chain are okay.
Yep.
Otherwise, your mission, you can't give your mission if the links in the chain that you're in your circle are not doing well. So how can you help
Absolutely.
somebody else if at home it's not taken care of?
Mm.
So we've got to start at home first. And if you don't know something, I'm the type of leader, like, I don't know everything, humble. Like, I don't know that. Let me Google it. I'll get back to you. And I think it's being that vulnerability side is what being a leader really is all about. And that's my journey. I share my story, whether it's from helping somebody that may suffer from depression. I'll share my brother's story and what he went through. I mean, it's just being honest and open. Like, I don't have everything together. I don't know everything. And I think that that's my leadership journey. The leaders I've looked at that I've followed that weren't the best leaders, they weren't transparent. They didn't show that vulnerability. They knew everything. You don't know everything. You could not be the smartest cookie in the room. Then what do you need me for? You don't need me just to give me this task to do. That stifles my creativity. If you have an idea, go ahead and execute it, but show me the plan. And I'm going to get behind you if it makes sense, or I'm just going to redirect you. I'm never going to tell you no. I'm not going to be the smartest cookie in the room. That's my leadership journey. I've learned that through watching other people that I see fail in leadership. They have to be the smartest cookie in the room. They got to be at every meeting. They got to be here and there. I don't need to be seen. As long as my team looks great, then I look great.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So there were so many nuggets in there. First and foremost, I think it's absolutely important that you're transparent. Because, pardon my French, people read BS easily, right? And you talk about influence, and you talk about when you're trying to influence people, you're basically trying to create a bond, trying to create a sense of loyalty between you and them. And when they don't pick up this authentic space from you, they don't want you to lead them. They don't want to hear what you have to say. And then both parties suffer from that. The other part, what I really, really loved hearing in that is that you're a servant. I heard servant leadership first in that, and that's one of the core values of the Great Leadership series. So I love when I hear and I see that people understand that is so paramount in leading folks. You have to be willing to think about the people versus the task. Of course, we need the task done, like you said, but you have to be willing to think about the people that are putting in the work and the effort to that. So I love it. I love it. So we talk about, let's move into like your business, your small business assistance that you do. What do you feel like is maybe one of the greatest challenges you've seen in small businesses in trying to lead their companies?
So one thing is not scaling your business. So if you want to get into government contracting, you've got to be able to scale. But even before you can scale, you got to have a plan. So trying to get into government contracting without a business plan, you're just kind of out there going after everything. That's my best words to put. So having that business plan in place so that you can properly scale, I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges. You've got to start with the plan. Because otherwise you're going to be going after, for example, Shelby County, the city of Memphis, the state of Tennessee, and even the federal government, and they're really not your target customer. You may be better on the commercial side. The government may really not be buying your products and services, but because you don't have that plan and you haven't done the proper research, you're out there wasting time. And time is money when you're a small business. If the government's not the right place for you to be doing business, you don't want to be spending your time there, and you can't get your time back. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I see.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's not finding or being strategic in the resources as well as understanding their target audience or target market, and just kind of going after everything as opposed to focusing in on that one one key area to go into. So that's pretty interesting, because a lot of times, I'm thinking about capital, but capital still plays into that, being able to have the funds to do it, but still just being strategic and creating that plan. And like you said, no plan, no vision, no success.
Right. And then
I love it.
Plan comes capital, because you've got to be able to have that plan to take into your funders. So everything really ties back to that business plan.
Right. So with you in leading, what has been one of the biggest challenges you've had as far as leadership that you've overcome? Let's go with the one that you've overcome.
I'll talk about the one I'm working on. It's delegation.
Ooh. I always have to sit back on that one because that is not my strong area. I too am, navigating those waters. So, Yeah. So delegating, what's difficult about it for you?
Letting go.
Mm.
So I'm do a lot of leadership training all of last year. During the COVID-19, I had time to reflect, like that's something like I'm burned out because I'm not delegating. I have a team that I trust, but do I really trust them? Because if I
Right.
trusted them, I'd be able to delegate the task. They don't have to do it just like me. They can do it to the best of their ability, and that's okay. So
Right.
I'm really learning and practicing delegation.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
active practice. Like, can you do this?
Right.
Hey, can you do that? And it's working out well. I'm no longer stressed. I'm not getting burnt out because I need help. I'm not a superwoman. I
Hmm.
can't do it all. I can't be doing this, that, and this, and then still look great. Because at the end, 3 months from now, I might be sick because I've been doing it all.
Yep.
And then I have to take a whole month for myself to heal and then redo what I did that month while I was sick. So the
Hmm.
delegation has been really important for me that I'm overcoming.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's I think a lot of people struggle with that. And it's about not just trusting your team, but I also think it's about trusting yourself. Trusting that you have equipped your team with everything they need to actually move on, and being okay with if it doesn't turn out exactly the way Kristen would have done it, or Veronica wouldn't have done it. So I think a lot of people definitely struggle with that when it comes to leadership. What have been some of the most impactful type of leaders that you've come across? I know you talked about learning from those who haven't been the most impressive, but what's been the impact of some of the most of some of those leaders that have been positive for you?
So one would be Judge Allegra Walker.
Mm.
She knew I did not like to network or to be in groups of people really. So she invited me to join a group. So that stretched me. I was uncomfortable because I was fine just being me by myself. So
Hmm.
she was already in the groups and she sponsored me in. That helped me significantly because I was able to build leadership skills. But then I think about like Senator Brenda Gilmore. She's a servant leader. Everything she does is for other people. And I see that modeled in her behavior. One thing that she done as a leader, when my brother passed away in 2015, her and her husband drove 2.5 hours to the
Hmm.
funeral. They didn't have to do that, but seeing her in the audience, that meant something to me.
Hmm.
Anything she asks me, she'll always get it. And then also too, she redirects me when I'm wrong. She'll be like, very well. I know that I've done something that's upset her, but it's not like she's attacking me or anything. She just knows I can do better and she holds me accountable.
Yep.
And then the next one I think of is the CEO of the National Business Incubation Center.
Hmm.
She keeps me accountable on being a good leader, and she's really helped me build my confidence towards being a better leader. But she leads by example. She holds people accountable. She doesn't just walk the walk, she talks it as well. And I see it in her every day. But she gives back to the community. All three of them, one thing they have in common is they give back to the community they serve.
And that's really,
But
really important.
mhm.
Yeah, giving back for sure. So I was taking notes as you were talking through your first example, the first young lady that you mentioned, that was, and accountability was what I pulled from that. And then of course you elaborated on it. But I think it's really, really important that we have people around us in our circles that like pull our coattail, like, hey, what's going on? Are you on top of it the way you really know you can be? And even if you are like at your top A game, like, okay, now we're going to take it to A+ game. How do we do that, and how do they help motivate and push you through that? So you mentioned earlier about your team. What approach do you use in fostering teamwork? How do because when we talk about humans, you got different personalities, different behaviors, different styles. What's been your best approach, you feel like, in getting people to come together and want to collaborate and be a team?
So I've learned to get to know the person.
Mm.
Not every team is going to be the correct team for certain individuals. So
Mm.
by getting to know the person, like playing icebreakers is an example. Like,
Yeah.
what's your favorite color? What's your favorite car? It really gives you insight on the person. And even doing like Myers Briggs is helpful as well to see their strengths and weaknesses. So if you're not strong on project management or even account responsibility, I'm not going to pair the same people together. But you
Mm.
just learning people's personalities, and because I'm tied to the mission and it's genuine and authentic, it makes
Hmm.
them excited about working. Now, I've also, this is something I struggle with. Not everybody's going to be committed to the mission at the same level and degree that I am, but I'm learning really to accept them where they are. That's probably been a hurdle that I've had to get over. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to go 110% like me, but their 50% is the best that they can give. And I accept them at that level.
Right, right. Meeting people where they are
Mhm.
and scaling from there. Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really important. Really important. So, with that, do you feel it's important to nurture leadership in others? And if so, how do you do it? With it doesn't have to be your team, just with even in your community. I know you say you're a community advocate. How do you find nurturing leadership important, and how do you do that?
I think it's important. It just depends on the person. Not everybody wants the kudos for the job. I wouldn't. Like, if I'm doing something that's great, don't announce that in front of 500 people because that I'm like, why'd you do that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like figuring out the individual and what really motivates them.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm able to nurture everybody. So I think that that's super important. The great leaders that I think of, they've nurtured me. They've gotten to
Mm-hmm.
really know my personality. Like they know when to give me kudos, when not to, what I like, what I don't like. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's big and important. And then on the nurturing side, there's a book that I read. It's called Greater Than Yourself.
Hmm.
So when I pour into people, I give my all. I give you access to all the contacts I have. I give you access to any resource that I have access to because I want to make you better than myself.
Right. Right.
And sometimes that means that you're going to exceed me, but I'm confident enough in myself to know if you exceeded me, I've done my job.
Mm. I love that. Love that perspective. It makes me think about just, having children, and it makes you think about, I have a 13-year-old. I want her to be better than me. Absolutely. If she's not better than me, I did something wrong. I want her to excel much, much greater than I. And so you should definitely want that for people that you're helping to pull up. Because if they do that, you have been effective in what you're trying to do. So let's talk about tension. What boils your bubble as a leader? Like, what's that thing that makes you say, "Oh, if I could just, put a ring around it and make this better." Like, what's that one thing that boils your bubble?
Probably people not meeting deadlines
Mm,
that affect other people.
mm-hmm,
So that's
mm-hmm.
probably been the hardest thing for me to be like, oh, you didn't meet the deadline. You didn't communicate, but you also didn't meet the deadline. I'm like,
Yeah,
so that's something that I'm really working towards. But I'm also looking to tell people the rationale of why it's important for you to meet that deadline. Because you didn't do this, we couldn't do that. So
right,
there's a
right.
broken link in the chain. So I'm
Mm-hmm,
trying to, so I've been working really hard to show like why your project, how your task ties back to the entire project. We're
right.
providing the rationale behind. We're trying to make sure that we show up on time, that we're delivering the best quality service. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. If I had to pick one, that would be the top
Right,
one.
because I'm sure we all have plenty. And you mentioned communication in there. For me, the communication is, oh, I don't care what kind of troubles are happening. I don't care that there are errors that are going to be made. Deadlines are not going to be met. But if we can talk it out and be proactive in the communication and be effective in the communication. So for me, when people do not communicate, it gets me to going, and it really makes me want to work harder for me to communicate in a way that kind of helps nurture better communication in other people. So, describe a time when your authority was questioned, but you stood firm and resolved the issue. And I like to address that one because it's kind of a problem solving question, which is all we do as leaders, all the time. And there are going to be people that don't always agree with us, whether it's team leaders, whether it's another stakeholder. And you don't have to be specific, just whatever you're comfortable with sharing. But, maybe a time where, you know, there was a decision you wanted to be carried out and it was, questioned or called to the carpet. How did you stand firm in that?
So I've always, most of the groups I've been a part of, I've always been the youngest. So
Mm,
sometimes when you're the youngest person, there's that stereotype. Well, you haven't lived long enough. You don't know what you're talking about. But we were making a financial decision to sign a contract. I had missed the meeting, but I was on the board and I knew I had a fiduciary duty to be like, oh, y'all voted on that? That's not right. So I had to stand for, even though other members, I stood firm like the contract needs to be re-signed for this amount based on the facts. And I went back to policies and procedure. And then I
mm,
also let them know, like, my name is on that bank account. So
mm-hmm.
if we don't make the amount of money that we're supposed to make fundraising, we're all going to be accountable for making up the difference, especially if our bank account goes negative. And they were like, well, that's not right. I was like, based on policies and procedures, this is how that's got to go. It made people upset, but I stood firm. I mean, being a leader means that sometimes you're on an island by yourself, but I was on that island by myself and I didn't even care because I knew I was standing on what was right. And I also knew that I needed the support of the president. So I talked to her first. And she's like, well, I didn't think about it from that standpoint. So I had her backing. But I would have stood alone on that by myself. Because I was at the point to where like, just take me off the bank account. Because I don't want to be held accountable.
Right. Yeah. So it's integrity and people, you're building respect when you do that. And anytime somebody can use the 2P word, procedure and policy, I love it. Even in my current job or even other jobs I've had, that I will rest on a procedure and policy. Not that I can't read I can't read the gray. I can't read in between lines or things like that. But the policies and procedures, especially if well written and very comprehensive, they will back any decision that needs to be made. And if you make your decision based on that, you are protected. And it's not just about even protecting yourself, it's about protecting the integrity of the organization, the decision, and a lot of things. When we talk about government procurement or community advocacy, we're going to be impacting people's lives generally. So those decisions really have to be very sound, because it can have a monopoly effect for years to come if we're not making the right decisions. So definitely standing on the island by yourself is something that happens in leadership. And like you said, you got to be okay with it. You have to be okay with it. I love that. So I like to do a couple of things that don't exactly deal with leadership, because I always like to just kind of get to know the person, because beyond what we do on an everyday basis, whether it's leading in their community or with our families or in our 9-to-5s, we're not leaders all the time. Like, we let our hair down at some point in some form or fashion. So what do you do in your spare time when Veronica is not helping to shape small businesses or helping the community bridge gaps and get the resources and things that it needs? What is Veronica doing?
So I love to read. So I'll read anything from self-help books to romance novels. I just like to be able to take away whatever is going on in the world for me, just to be able to just imagine. I also like to go walking. I hated walking before COVID-19. If you ask any of my friends, like,
oh wow! So that's what got you moving. The pandemic, just to find something to do, you picked up walking. Okay.
Yes, and I'm competitive. So my sister was like, "Oh, I did 8 miles today," and I was like, "Oh, I can do that too. I can do 10." So I was doing a friendly competition with my sister, but in the same time, I was getting myself fit.
Love it.
So
Love it.
Pre-COVID, I love to go to the movies. I love to go see plays. So anything like that, or concerts, that was all pre-COVID, but I really had to rearrange or rewire my brain around things I like to do now. Since there's really no movies, there's no plays, there's no concerts. So I'm doing a lot of reading. Sometimes I binge watch Netflix.
Right. I was just doing that the other day. Yeah.
Absolutely. I did that this weekend, but mainly I do a lot of family oriented things. So I love going to spend time with my mom and dad, seeing both of my sisters, seeing my nieces and nephews, even seeing my cousins, my little cousins. So very family oriented. And as a family, if you met pretty much all of my cousins, we all serve in some capacity in the community. So we're very driven for work. So I grew up on a farm. I got to work in the vegetable farm next to my grandma, my dad's brother, and my aunt, and with my parents. So I knew how to pick tomatoes or corn, and those are invaluable skills. So that's where I was taught to be a leader, or how to work within a business, how to have that integrity. It all goes back to my family. So anything that has to do with my family, I enjoy.
Love it. I love the root of how your family has, kind of put you where you are today. Those things that you learned from them. I love it. And I cannot imagine the farming. I can't, but I admire it, because it's hard work. From what I understand, it is hard work, and I'm sure that has spilled over into everything that you do in creating excellence, going forward. So
yeah,
I love it.
Me and my sister always say that, we graduated from high school, and we knew we had to excel in college because we were not going back to farm life. We knew
Right.
we were not going back because we knew that was our alternative. So
Mm.
deeply
Only going to
rooted,
visit.
right? So
Love it. I love it. Any motivation, any motivation. So here's a really fun one. I haven't asked this one before, but if you could be a car, any car, what would it be and why?
so it's gonna be like a Ford F-150 that's sitting up really high like a monster truck
Uh-huh.
because I want to go fast and
Mm,
have dominance over the road. When people see me
mm.
like they're getting out of my way, it's gonna be purple because purple's my favorite color, stands for royalty. But it's gonna have those big wheels, and it also reminds me of a truck I drove in high school.
Oh,
That
wow.
it wasn't that big, but it said on the front of it, "Fear this." I mean, it relates back to my farm life, and it was red. But like, that's my dream car because I want to sit up high.
I love it. And I needed that truck probably a week ago so I could drive around town. Since we had all this snow, I was so jealous of all those that can still go out and navigate through the snow. And I'm sitting at home, couldn't do anything, and needed groceries, couldn't do anything. So I love it. And I love the analogy you gave, or, the example you gave of sitting up high. Like that means something too. So I like that. I like it's not just sitting high in the car. It's, just being at excellence. That's what I heard, being at excellence at all times. So is there anything that else you'd like to share with us about leadership? Any nugget or anything that we haven't already talked about, or that you just want to make sure that the listeners walk away with, just being able to be motivated and moving forward?
One thing is that everybody's a leader,
Mm,
and you may not think that you're a leader because you may feel like your role is insignificant, but everybody matters. It reminds me of a story I had about an airplane passenger that was flying to an airport. And when they got off the plane, he talked to the janitor that was inside of the bathroom. And he was like, "This is the cleanest bathroom." And then the janitor said, "This is my office. When you come in
mm,
here, I want to make sure that you have the best experience." So that janitor was a leader in that respect because if the bathroom was dirty, that could have made that passenger's day bad. But because he took like he had not respect, but he took pride in his work,
mm,
that meant he influenced somebody else for the better.
mm,
And just looking at it from that standpoint, we are all leaders. We all have it in us, but we all make the choice every day whether we're going to lead for good or we're going to lead for bad. Sometimes I'm not the best leader. I may be leading you because I'm having a bad day. And everybody's always looking, I should say that. I always have people that are older than me like, "Oh, you're such a great leader. And, you really influenced my life when you did this." And I'm like, "But you're 20 years older than me." I'm sitting like, I'm influencing your life that much. So you never know whose life you're impacting. So
absolutely.
you've always got to think about how the world is seeing you. It's okay for you to let your hair down and be your true self, but just make sure that they see your authentic self. You don't want to suffer from imposter syndrome. I
Right.
can't lead like this in the public. And then when I get home, that's totally not who the world sees. So
Mm,
just make sure you're your authentic self. But we all have leadership qualities in us. We just got to tap into them and stop running. I've been running. I was running, but I'm no longer running. I'm leaning into it, and it feels
mm.
great.
I love it. I love it. And that is one of those arguable questions. Theorists have argued about it. A lot of times if you take a leadership course, is leadership innate? Can everybody be a leader? And when I do my leadership course, that's one of the first questions I ask the audience, do you consider yourself a leader? And it's almost every time there's going to be, one or more that don't consider themselves leaders. And I think a lot of times it's because they think about the formal aspect of it. Nobody has ordained them to be, the boss or the supervisor or the team lead or the captain. But I just say we're generally leading ourselves individually every day, in that informal capacity. And then it just, branches out when you are maybe thrusted or, asked to be in a more formal role. But everybody has the ability to lead. Um, we're all working to sharpen those skills because nobody's perfect, like you said. I've got some days I know my team look at me and they're like, "Baby, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Are you leading us today or what?" But we're always trying to, just really tap into the greater versions of ourselves, specifically when it comes to leadership. But I love that you actually acknowledge that everybody has the ability to lead. And I think that is a great, great note to leave on. Listeners, I hope you heard that you have the ability to lead. I don't don't care what kind of day you've had, what kind of season you're in. You absolutely can take the reins and take control and lead in a way that is impactful, not only to those around you that you're trying to influence or that you are influencing, but just to yourself and getting yourself further along in whatever your purpose is. So with that, how can we connect with you, Veronica? uh, if if it's LinkedIn, where would you like to share for people to be able to connect with you if they want to reach out and talk more about leadership or small business or community advocacy, all those good things?
So you can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Veronica Clark. I think it is my name on LinkedIn. And also via email, I can give you all my personal email. It's V like in Veronica, M like in Michelle, C like in Clark, L like in love, A like in apple, R like in red, the number 2 at gmail.com. And if you're wanting to connect on the procurement side, I'll just switch you over to my work email.
Perfect, perfect. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you all for joining. We just had a quick time to be able to share with you and again help you get past your hump day through the rest of your week. And we look forward to you all joining us next week. Until next time, let's lead.